Hi there, I'm Buddha and you're watching Dr. Guitar, a show for all you guitarists out there. Today, I will show you how I approach my amp, how I approach an amp. And basically, there's two approaches. One, if I'm playing with pedals, to get my drives and my effects out of. And the other is if I'm playing directly to the amp. I'll first show you what I look for in an amp when I'm playing with pedals, as I was playing in the intro. If I'm playing with pedals and I have a beautiful amp like this, the Fulltone, and this is a very, very, very special amp to me. It's made in Portugal, in Madeira Island, by a great friend of mine, electronics wizard and genius, and it's probably the best amp I've ever played in my life. It's a Fulltone amp. It's not a commercial amp. It was made for him to play, and when I first played in this amp, I was in love. It's unfucking believable, this amp. And it's really beautiful. It's made in Madeira wood, so it's very special, and it's made by a great friend of mine, which makes it even more special. So shout out to Manuel who built it, and to Alex from Studio 21, an amazing music store and an incredible school, music school. Those guys are unfreaking believable, and Alex introduced me to Manuel, and they worked together to create Fulltone. They build pedals and amps, and they are amazing. So today I'm using the Fulltone, the Mac ELJ, this little beauty. I'm using it to demonstrate how I approach amp, and I usually play a lot when you play on festivals or and with rented backline. You need to know how to approach an amp to get your sound. Usually when I do that, I don't depend as much of the amp as when I play with my Mesa Boogie that I know so well, whether it be my Transatlantic or my Lonestar, which are also unbelievably great amps. I usually play with my Lonestar because it's a lot more flexible than this one for a show. So it has 2 channels, reverb, volume boost. So it already, just with one amp, I can get a lot of different sounds. Foot switchable, because I sing too. So I'm singing and playing, and I'm not being able to manipulate the volume and the amp. But this is a really versatile amp. It has some push-pulls, some fat boosts, some mid boosts, some gain boosts, a treble boost. So it can get you anywhere you want. When I approach an amp for use with pedals in festivals or when I rent backline, I always go for on the verge of breakup. So I put the amp, and that's the key to getting a great amp sound. It's understanding how much do you want the amp to compress. And that's the key. That's why we love tube amps, valve amps, because tubes compress in a unique way, and they have a beautiful compression. So if you dig in, if you play harder, they will compress and they will gently smooth out your tone. But if you play soft, they will let it breathe, and then you have a lot of dynamics. So I always go for my clean sound to be as good as possible and as less clean as possible. So I'll almost never use a clean, pristine sound. I always use a tone that when you dig in, you start to break up the amp a little bit. Usually it's just compression. So this is my clean sound. Sorry, tone cut off. And as you can see, it's on the verge of breakup. I can put a little more gain into it, so it can break some. Let me turn off the slapback. This is a great tone. It can deal with all my intricate, very complex, a lot of notes parts, like. And I usually go to my neck position. And it has to be a little, it needs to have some brightness to it. Otherwise it will be very dark and dull. And I go to the bridge, and it can't be too sparkle, too high-endy. This is why this amp is so amazing. Well, I'm using it with my 4x10 Mesa Boogie Lonestar cabinet, which is also probably the best cabinet I've ever played with. It's very focused, very full-bodied, with a lot of mid-range, but not harsh, not a honky mid-range, not too much highs. So it's really well balanced. It's my favorite cabinet of all time. So it's never too harsh, and then I can get some pedals into it. I can use my King of Tone for an overdrive. So this is my clean sound. I can get the King of Tone. And as you can hear, a lot more compression gets in, not that much of volume raise, but a lot more compression and some overdrive. But that's why the King of Tone is so amazing. And then I have the second side of the King of Tone set as a clean boost, just for a bump in volume and to compress a little more the amp and to kind of making it drive a little more. So the clean boost with the amp tone, just the clean boost. And the drive. So this way I have a clean tone, my overdrive channel, which is the King of Tone in the red side, and then a boost, kind of a clean boost. It's not that clean, but and it's a little mid-range, but it helps to get through the mix. So I have either the clean sound with a little boost or the clean sound with a little drive, and then with the drive I can even add the clean boost. So I have 4 different tones, and I have my Lonestar in here. Okay, so clean channel, dirty channel, and both with or without the boost. So that's it. And then, since I always use fuzzes, the amp needs to react great with fuzz, and the highs are the most difficult thing to get. So with an Octave fuzz, that's it. That's how I approach the amp. I'm using a Uni-Vibe. I also use a Vibe, Roger Mayer Voodoo Vibe. By the way, the Octave fuzz is the ultimate octave from Fulltone. The Vibe. And that's it. And I forgot to mention, because I know this amp so well, but when I get an amp that I don't know what it does, I always do this. And it's very simple. I always go through the EQ bands and try to figure out what did they do to the sound, so I can adjust it if I want more or less of that frequency. There are some amps, and that I don't know. I will discover it with you. There are some amps that don't have sound if you have the EQ all cut off, like the Fender Twin, for example. So the EQ is like 3 or 2, it depends, but 3 distinct gain sections. So the more you give from that EQ, the more drive you will get for that frequency, and the volume will be the overall gain or overall volume, because sometimes the gain is preset. So if you have, like in a twin reverb, you or in a Bassman, Fender Bassman, if you have the guitar into the input one, for example, which is the hotter input of the amp, if you put the bass at max, you are allowing a lot more bass to go into the input channel, so you're driving the bass. And sometimes when you want a mush, fuzzy feeling from the amp, you need to push the bass. Sometimes when the amp is crapping up and you don't have any headroom, you need to cut the bass off, so you are not overdriving the bass. So let's hear if this amp works with the EQ on 0. I'll reset it all. Yeah, no tone, see? So I have it all on 0, no tone. Let me hear what the treble does. Let me hear what the mids does. And the bass. So it's amazing. The mids, it's almost all you need in the amp. So if you cut the bass and the treble and leave just the mids, you have a very mid-rangey sound. But it's almost all the guitar sounds like. Let me put the mids at middle. It's a perfect, good sound. Let me raise the bass as it was in the treble. It gets a lot warmer, it compresses a lot more, and it feels heavier, the guitar. So sometimes in a mix, if you are playing with another guitar player or a keyboard player and you have a bass player, sometimes you can cut the bass off. It won't sound that good by itself, but it will fit a lot better in the mix. When you need sometimes a little bit of present, the treble can help you to cut through the mix without any volume. Let's put the EQ all on max and let's see what it does to the drive. So all at noon and max it out. Not good. Let's cut the treble off. As you can see, it's just a question of compression, right? And this amp that's why this amp is really a beautiful tone machine, because it really can help you to manipulate your tone, and it works really well with pedals, as you've heard. Okay, now let's use just the amp. I will leave the slapback, which is the Memory Boy, Electro Harmonix Memory Boy. I will leave it on just for that space, and I'm going through the pedals, but I'm just playing with the amp. When I'm just playing with an amp, what I look for in an amp is an amp that can drive, that can give me my king of tone with the boost and the overdrive, or my Lonestar in the overdrive channel and with the volume boost. So I'm setting the amp for the max, the highest and the most overdriven sound I can get out, because that's my guitar on 10. When I use the guitar on 10, that's the loudest I will get. And sometimes I never go to 10. I will keep in 7 and 2, from 2 to 7, 2 to 8, it depends. But I know I have that drive available with my volume pot. And that's why I love so much this guitar too, because it reacts so beautifully to the volume changes. And it works really well. So what I'm looking for now is exactly the opposite as how I approach the amp when I have pedals. So when I have pedals, I go for the lowest possible sound in the amp. Okay, for my cleanest of all tones, and then all the dirt, all the overdrive comes from the pedals. I set it to the minimum. When I use just the amp, I set it to the max. This is the most overdriven sound and the louder I will play. So 2 different approaches for the same purpose. And I love to do it. I love to play with just the amp, and the Fender Bassman is an amazing amp. I recently bought one, and it's really great. This amp is a dream to play off. My Lonestar is also great. My Transatlantic is also amazing. The dual caliber Mesa Boogie is also a great amp. Almost any good amp will play good in this situation, and you'll control it with the volume. Okay, so I'm setting the amp for the maximum overdrive, and this is where the Mac, the Remtone Mac, this beautiful amp, comes in, because it has gain and master, so you can really overdrive the gain and dial in the volume as you want. But since it's a 50 watt EL34, you can also overdrive the power amp, the power section, and it will depend on the venue you are playing. But it has a push here on the gain, so you can have more gain. So that's where I will start. If the gain is here from my minimum tone, I will just give it a push, and it will bring a lot more gain into the game. So this is my clean sound as it was. And I will push it. A little push. So I'll need a lot more. Probably more. And then, with my volume, I get my clean sound. Okay, so it's with the pull on the gain and maxed out. That's one thing. Another great thing about the Mac is that it has a fat boost, which really increases the low end. Usually, it's just for some things, but let's try it. So, no pull, just the gain pull. And guitar on 10. Now let's put the fat boost. You hear it crapping out? It's because I'm putting a lot of gain before the gain stage. So it's pushing a lot of bass into the gain stage, and it's getting a fuzzier tone, which I really love. So listen, if I back off the volume. Five. 7. 10. Amazing. But it's losing the definition. So I have a treble booster, a bright switch in the master section. Hear it without the bright. And with the bright. Without the bright. Without the fat. And that's it, how I use it. So just to set things straight and just to clarify some doubts, I have two approaches. The first one is when I use the amp with pedals. Well, not the first one, the A approach or the X approach, because I don't have a preference per se in any approach. It depends on what I'm playing and what I'm doing. I love both approaches. So if I'm playing with pedals, I will approach the amp for the least drive on it. I'll set it to the minimum distortion and compression. I love compression, so I always try to make the amp compress a little bit, and to level things for me, and that's where I use it. And then I use pedals that work good with that amp. The King of Tone is one of the greatest overdrive I've ever tried. And it's on my Fly pedalboard. Then I have the King of Tone with 2 settings, but if you don't have a King of Tone, you can use like 2 tube screamers, or the Boss OD3 is an amazing, really inexpensive pedal. It's really a great kind of overdrive, clean boost, fat thing. It used to be one of my favorite pedals, and I used it a lot, even with the King of Tone. But I usually try to have two gain boosts, so an overdrive and then a clean or cleanish boost. It can be a G7 Boss equalizer, for example. It's what I'm using in my main pedal board. So it can be clean. It's clean. It's a clean boost. But if the amp is on the verge of breakup, it will break up a little bit, and it will give you a little bit more of distortion or overdrive or compression. But with the EQ, you can even tailor the boost you can give. So you can just give a volume boost, but you can also tailor it and scoop some really high frequency and boost some mid range for single note thing. Then I have my fuzz, which has to work with the amp, and then the delays are the easiest part to work with. The other approach is if I'm using just the amp and the guitar, and I need to get all the tones from the amp, so I'll set it to the maximum distortion / overdrive that I need, and I try to get the amp to compress as much as possible and to be the loudest I want it to be. And that's where the amp power really comes into place, because if you need to put it, if you don't have a master volume, if you are playing with a 100 or 200 watt amp, you'll probably never get the amp to overdrive as much as you wanted, unless you're playing in a very big Wembley or something like that, in a stadium. But I try to set the amp to overdrive the most I want. I want it to overdrive, so it's my all pedals on setting, and then I reduce it with the volume and control it with the volume on my guitar. So that's it. I hope this has been helpful to you. Please always remember to subscribe to the channel. We're reaching for 500 subscribers now. I'm very thankful to all of you guys that have been subscribing and leaving comments and suggestions. It's been a really amazing journey we've been doing. But please subscribe, share it with the world, tell your friends, bring more people in so we can grow this community. I'm doing this just to share the knowledge I've acquired. I'm not being here to massage my ego. I'm doing this to share it with the world, because so many great people have shared their knowledge and their wisdom with me, and I feel obliged. I feel the need to give it back to you and to try to help some of you guys. And I'm learning a lot from doing these videos also. So it's been a really amazing journey. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Share it. And I'll see you next week. Bye.